The crystal spires of Viridia Prime gleamed under the pale morning light as Princess Kira stood at the observation deck of the Imperial Palace. 5 years of brutal warfare had finally ended, and the ceremonial surrender would take place within the hour. Her violet eyes traced the horizon, where human ships hung in formation, their angular designs so different from the flowing architecture of her people. The war had begun when humanity first pushed beyond their home system, bare aggressive, expansion threatening the delicate balance of the Viridian Empire. What followed was a conflict that consumed entire star systems and claimed billions of lives on both sides. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the galaxy, never yielding ground, never accepting defeat, even when facing impossible odds. Kira remembered the early reports from the front lines, how human soldiers would continue fighting even when severely wounded, how they would sacrifice themselves to save their comrades without hesitation. The other alien species called it madness, but there was something about their determination that reminded her of stories from her childhood. "Your Highness," came the voice of Commander Vex behind her. "A human delegation has arrived." She turned, her ceremonial robes rustling against the polished floor. "How many?" "Only 3, as requested. Their fleet commander, a diplomatic envoy, and the soldier they call the Ghost of Kepler Station." Kira's breath caught. Every being in the galaxy knew that name. The lone human who had held Kepler Station for 18 days against an entire Viridian assault fleet. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found him surrounded by the wreckage of 100 enemy fighters, his ship barely functional, himself half dead from exhaustion and wounds. The victory had turned the tide of the war. "What is his name?" she asked quietly. "The records show Marcus Webb, Your Highness." The world seemed to tilt around her. Marcus, little Mark from the human embassy school, the boy who had shared his lunch with her when the other children were too afraid to approach an alien princess, the friend who had taught her to play chess and laugh at silly jokes, the boy who had promised to write when his family returned to Earth. He had kept that promise for 2 years, before the communications stopped. She had always wondered what became of him. Now she knew. The throne room filled with dignitaries from across the Empire as the human delegation was announced. Fleet Commander Hayes entered first, a stern woman with silver hair and calculating eyes. The diplomatic envoy followed, his movements careful and measured. Then came the third figure, and Kira's hearts nearly stopped. He was taller now, broader through the shoulders, his brown hair shorter than she remembered. A scar ran from his left temple to his jawline, and his green eyes held a weight that spoke of battles fought and friends lost. But it was him. Despite the years and the war between them, it was unmistakably him. Marcus stepped forward with the others as they approached the throne. His gaze swept the assembled court before settling on her, and she saw the exact moment recognition dawned in his expression. His steps faltered almost imperceptibly, his lips parting in surprise. "Your Imperial Majesty," Fleet Commander Hayes began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "We come to accept the terms of surrender as negotiated." The formal words washed over Kira as she stared at Marcus. He had composed himself quickly, his expression now carefully neutral, but she could see the storm of emotions in his eyes. The same eyes that had looked at her with such warmth all those years ago. The ceremony proceeded with ancient ritual and diplomatic precision. Treaties were signed, territories were ceded, reparations were agreed upon. Through it all, Kira felt as though she were moving through a dream. The boy who had once helped her build sandcastles in the embassy garden had become the weapon that ended their war. When the formal proceedings concluded, she managed to catch his eye and give the slightest nod toward a side chamber. Understanding passed between them, a remnant of their childhood ability to communicate without words. She dismissed her attendants and waited. Minutes passed before the door opened, and Marcus entered alone, still wearing his formal military uniform with its rows of medals and commendations. He closed the door behind him, and they stood there, separated by 5 meters and 5 years of warfare. "Hello, Kira," he said softly. Her name on his lips nearly broke her composure. "Hello, Mark." "I never thought I would see you again," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "When the war started, when I learned it was against the Viridian Empire, I hoped you were somewhere safe, far from the fighting." "I was here," she replied, "watching reports from the front lines, reading casualty lists, trying to find some way to end the madness before more lives were lost." He nodded slowly. "I know you tried. The peace overtures, the prisoner exchanges, the humanitarian corridors. My commanders thought it was weakness, but I knew better. I knew it was you. And yet you kept fighting. I had to." His hands clenched at his sides. "My duty, my oath, my people, they all demanded it. But every time I fired my weapons, every enemy ship I destroyed, I wondered if I was killing someone you cared about." Kira stepped closer, close enough to see the pain in his eyes. "You were. But I also knew that if humanity was going to survive this war, they needed someone like you fighting for them. Someone who would never give up, never surrender, never let his people fall, even if it meant becoming your enemy. You were never my enemy, Mark. You were a soldier fighting for his people, just as my people were fighting for theirs. But you were never my enemy." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and lost possibilities. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "What happens now?" "Now there is peace," she said. "Now we rebuild. Now we try to heal the wounds this war has left on both our peoples. And us." She looked at him, this man who had been her dearest friend and her people's greatest adversary. "I do not know. Too much has happened. Too much blood has been spilled. But perhaps in time we can find our way back to something like friendship." Marcus smiled then, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face, making him look like the boy she remembered. "I would like that," he said. "I would like that very much." As he turned to leave, Kira called out to him one final time. "Mark?" He paused at the door. "Yes? Thank you for keeping your people alive. Thank you for being strong enough to end this war." He nodded once and was gone, leaving her alone with her memories and the hope that someday the friendship they had, shared as children, might bloom again in the peace they had both fought so hard to achieve. Outside, the human fleet was already preparing to depart, carrying news of the war's end back to Earth. But in her heart, Princess Kira knew this was not an ending at all. It was a beginning.